What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Chuds BBQ. My name is Brother Robinson, and welcome back to episode 3 of the Reverse Flow Smoker build series. Where last week we knocked out this big, beautiful, semi-insulated firebox as well as the frame. So now today it's time to put this firebox on that frame and marry it to that cook chamber. So let's get to cooking. Wait, that's not my catchphrase. Coming up! So as you can see, this thing is heavy duty, to say the least. Probably weighs around 400 pounds, and we need to get it onto that frame. And this part can be a little bit tricky, because I don't have a fancy hoist, nor do I have a forklift. Although, maybe one day, because that would make this real easy. So we gotta get creative. This is an engine hoist. And if you're not familiar with these, they are exactly what they sound like. They are used to hoist engines out of vehicles. Got this one for a couple $100 at Harbor Freight. This is the second one because I broke the first one, even though it's rated up to 2 tons. But I snapped one of the wheels, which then in turn bent the leg. So, not a perfect piece of kit, but it gets the job done. First thing we're gonna do is extend this arm out a little bit. Gotta use this little stick here to twist a tiny little lever to lower it down. There we go. Here we go. Then, same tube, just crank it up.
I don't think I balanced this properly. This could go horribly wrong.
Looking pretty good. Here's a dumb thing to do. If it's a little off kilter, just give it a whack. I think we're good. Still kind of scary though. That went smoother than I was expecting. Probably shouldn't say that at this stage. Woo! Sometimes I wish that table didn't weigh 300 pounds. Nice and slowly. Don't want to bend our frame at this point. And there we go. And now it's time to try and get this giant tank off the ground using the lift yet again. Now this part is always a little bit tricky because yet again I don't have the right equipment, but what I need to do is get this thing level at its perfect height so I can tack it on this side and then throw the legs on that side. Again, this is the first time I'm building this pit. Usually I have the legs calculated already, so this is a lot easier. But my biggest problem is none of my jacks fit. This one is too small to raise this end up from the ground, and that one's too tall. So we gotta get a little bit creative yet again. Then again, this is kind of the fun part. It's just trying to figure it out. So after about an hour of tinkering with this thing, I'm like 80% sure that this is at the right height. It's looking nice and level, just a lot of banging things around and just trying my damnedest to make sure that this thing is straight in this direction, squared up on the frame itself, perfectly level, you know, kind of a pain, but I think we're ready to weld it in. And now it's time to make the legs on this side. I got a piece of flat steel right down here that I'm going to set this on. Line it up with the frame. Then I'm going to take a little pan here and just trace that exact curve right there. So now I can cut this out and theoretically it should fit out nice and snug against this pipe. sign. And it's still level. Beautiful. This is always a fun part in the build when it actually starts to look like a smoker. No cranes or hoists holding it up. It's standing on its own 2 legs. Check it out. I got these pieces just placed up here to see how I did in mounting this thing square, and looks like everything fits perfectly. Very happy about that. Good Lord. Well, we'll get back to this later. Nice fit. Because now it's time to focus on the cook chamber itself and get some doors knocked out. Although I'm getting kind of hungry and I got these cookers over here, so I think it's time to fire something up. Going on the old mini Chud box prototype version, my garage pit. I'm thinking some beef ribs today, hot and fast cook, because I always start cooking beef ribs at 4:30 in the afternoon. Why not? Might as well. So as you can see, I went with a pipe style build, as I typically do when I'm making offsets, just like this one in that smaller version over there. And that's probably one of the most frequent questions I get about pit building is propane tank versus pipe style pits. And there are several different reasons for why you might want to go with one versus the other. First and foremost, pipes are clean. I mean, just look at this thing. I did just shine this up a little bit, hit it with a little bit of this stuff, stops rust, does a good job. And the fact is that this isn't full of flammable gas. It doesn't stink. I didn't have to clean it out. With a propane tank, you have to fill it with water to make sure you're not cutting into a tank that's full of pressurized flammable gas with fire, because it will explode. I've come very close a few times. Second or third pit I ever built, the guy said the tank had never been filled, and it was in fact full. I shot the valve like 30 yards that way. Terrifying. Stunk up the whole neighborhood. And especially for the home garage welder, working with pipes is really nice and easy. They come in a variety of thicknesses. You can get anywhere from an 1/8 inch all the way up to 1/2 inch. This is 3/8 inch thick steel, by the way. Very heavy duty and probably a little bit overkill. But the main downside to a pipe style pit is that it doesn't have any end caps on it. And finding round end caps is kind of tough. And while flat ends do work well, it's not ideal for airflow and doesn't have that classic look. That being said, propane tanks also have a lot of other advantages. First and foremost, they're probably going to be a lot cheaper and easier to find depending on where you live. Hop on Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist. Oftentimes people have an old dead propane tank that they will just give away for free. And of course they come in all the perfect sizes of 120, 150, 250, up to 1,000 gallons, so you can really get exactly what you want. I've also seen lots that are just full of dead propane tanks. They usually sell for about $1 a gallon, although now with the rise of pit building, they're a little more coveted and prices going up. I remember 10 years ago when I first started welding, there were so many 150 gallon, 120 gallon propane tanks for free on Marketplace all the time. Not anymore. But like I said, if they're full of propane and you're in a residential area like I am, cutting into a propane tank is a great way to piss off the neighbors or get the fire department called on you. Happened once. So if you are going to go the tank route, I highly recommend trying to find one that's already been opened. You may have noticed I've had a 250 sitting over there for like 6 years at this point because I can't seem to get around to building that thing. But the reason I picked it up is because I got 2 of them with all the valves already removed, completely aired out, delivered to my house for 500 bucks. So that was a great deal. We'll probably have to do a build series on that 250 when I get to it. But the main reason for me why I stick with pipe style pits over the tank style is because I'm trying to sell them and I need them to be easily replicatable. And I cannot find a reliable source for small propane tanks. But as you can tell by the pit that I use in the backyard, if I'm ever doing a one-off, finding a single propane tank is definitely a great way to go about it. It's a lot cheaper. You don't have to worry about the end caps. And if it's already emptied out, that's a bonus. So when it comes to sourcing your materials, again, Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist is a great place to look for pipes or tanks. You could also Google around for any local propane suppliers, see if they have any dead tanks that you could pick up. And as far as pipes like this go, that are the perfect size for making barbecue pits, look up local pipe suppliers. That's what I did. I found a place, it's a little bit out of town, found it on Craigslist, I think, that sell these big old pipes. It's a 24 inch by 60, 3/8 inch thick steel pipe. And I think they said this is a piece of drop steel from the oil business. So it's never been used. It's just when they're cutting it, this is like apparently a common piece. So I get them for pretty cheap, but even still, half the time I go there, they're sold out. They don't have any on hand. And I don't even know if that place is still in business, to be honest with you. So before you start shooting me DMs like I get every single day asking where I get my pipes or where to get propane tanks, just look it up. Find yourself a pipe supplier, find yourself a local metal shop, give them a call, ask if they know anywhere, but just don't ask me. And then of course there's the other option, which is to find a pipe roller. There's a big fabrication shop north of town that does all sorts of stuff, including rolling pipe. I got this one rolled. This is 1/4 inch thick steel. I had them pre-cut the door out of this thing. You can see all the notches right there. Makes life very convenient. They're very clean, super consistent, great for punching out the same results time after time. But this is probably the most expensive way to go about it. You know, rolling your own pipe versus finding a dirty one in someone's backyard. But it's nice and clean and looks perfect. So to answer this question, hopefully for the last last time. When it comes to tanks versus pipe for building your backyard smoker, if you're doing a one-off and you want it to be as cheap and easy as possible and you don't mind a little bit of risk in getting your hands dirty, a propane tank, air compressor tank is definitely the way to go about it. But if you're nervous about blowing your face off, or you just like the look of the pipe style pits, these are just as easy to find, and it's a little bit extra work because you got to worry about end caps, but at the end of the day, they both make for great smokers. So at this stage in the build, you can pretty much go in whatever direction you want. You could throw that bottom rack on there, you could focus on the stack and the end caps, but for me the most obvious next step would be to get the doors cut out, because then you have the end caps open, which makes putting the grates in a little bit easier and make it look like an actual barbecue pit. But quick little note from past experience, always make sure you know what side you're working on, and that is dependent on which side this door opens. Because you want this to open on the same side as your chamber doors, so you don't have to walk all the way around to open it and have it open this way towards you. Probably obvious to say that, but I've done it more than once, so learn from me. Also, at this point, I've only welded that a couple inches down because, one, it's a pain in the butt to try and weld underneath that. So basically, once I get these doors opened up, I'm going to finish that inner weld on the inside. Kinda lazy. But before we go ahead and get these doors cut out, first, we need to draw them on there. And one of my favorite tools is the old pipe level. Comes in very handy for this. And basically what this is a little level that you can adjust to 45, 90, or pretty much whatever angle you like. I'm going to put it at 0. And then pop it right on top. Find out where this bubble is level. Right about, and then give it a little whack. And now we got a nice little indent right where the top is to get our first line. Same thing over here. And we'll do one in the middle as well. Slap on your biggest, longest ruler. I like to clamp them down just to make life a little bit easier, and then get our top line drawn on. Next up, flip this to 45 and or 90. We'll find our horizontal line as well. Next up, we got to find our center point, which on this particular pipe, which is 58.75 inches. Nice, real annoying. So I got a center line right in the middle, and because I'm going to be putting a thermometer between this, and this will in fact have 2 doors on it, because 1/3 inch thick door is very heavy. That's what I usually do, but we're going to go for a double on this one. So this is a 3-inch thermometer. I need to have a little bit of leeway because we're going to be putting flat bar around the door. So I'm going to go ahead and make a 5-inch gap. And then for the other side of the door, I'm going to go about 2.5 inches in from each end cap. Your teeth full. So now we've got door, center mount for the thermometer, and other door. And now we need to make all these same exact lines on horizontal axis. And now all we got to do is bust out the handy dandy flexible ruler that I talked about in episode 1 and connect all these lines. Looking good, everything's looking straight. Hopefully you can see the red lines on the camera, but at this point, if we were to cut these doors from exactly top to exactly quarter way down, these doors would be gigantic, they'd be really heavy, they'd open up really tall, and they'd sit back really far. So what I'm going to do now is put one more line, probably 2-3 inches down from center, and that'll be the top of our door. And there it is, folks, all drawn out, ready to get cutting. That's how I like to do doors. Again, if you're doing a bigger pit, like a 30-inch diameter pipe or a 1,000-gallon, you may want to bring this down a little bit, make your doors as big or as small as you like. You know, if you're going to put counterweights on there and you really want to have maximum upper rack space, then maybe you want to cut it right at the mid-level, but you can pretty much do whatever you want. You could do 1 door in the middle, you could do 3 doors, 2 doors. That's the best part about building your own pit, but I like things to look symmetrical and even. So, next up, we'll start cutting. But that is a task for the next episode. By the way, should we see how these beef ribs came out? Must say, they're looking absolutely gorgeous. Whew, it's been a minute since I had a good beef rib, folks. Also been a minute since I cooked some beef ribs on the old mini Chud box, but not looking bad for like a 4 or 5 hour cook. I did wrap these in foil to rest them for a little bit, but ooh, oh yeah, nice crunchy bark. Yes, please. I mean, there's just something so beautiful about a nice, squishy, tender beef rib. Oh my God, just gotta, oops. Nope. Not as smoky, just as tasty. Probably shouldn't have grabbed my dullest knife for this, but oh yeah, worked like a dream. Boop. That's just a bite of happiness, folks. And you gotta love these end cuts, you know? It's like a brisket burn end on a stick and just, oh, so tender. I don't know why, but out of all 3 of these, this little burn end guy is calling my name. Oh my God, it's so good. A little bit rich. Bleh. Ah, so good. But without further ado, I think it's time for the official taste test. Alright folks, that's going to do it for episode 3 of the Reverse Flow Smoker build series. I hope you enjoyed this episode, learned a trick or two, you got a little more insight about what it looks like to actually build a heavy duty backyard smoker. And I always like getting to this stage right here, because all the tricky stuff is behind us. You know, sourcing your materials, figuring out your firebox, getting this mounted and level, make sure everything is straight, is usually where things tend to go wrong during a smoker build. But now that this is off the ground, it's wheelable, and everything else is just more grinding, more cutting, and more welding, and a little bit more straightforward. And I'm excited to get this thing smoking. But all that being said, if you enjoyed this video, let me know by hitting that subscribe button. Let YouTube know by dropping a like on this video. If you've done any pit builds yourself, feel free to tag me on Instagram at Chuds BBQ. I'd love to see what y'all are building. Big shout out to all the Patreon members. Thank you for supporting Team Chud and allowing me to keep making all of these videos. And until the next time I see you, please go cook something outside. Peace!